Hi, my name's Keith Cooper and I'm having a quick look at the brand new macro lens from Laowa. It's a 50mm f2.8. It's a manual focus lens. There are no electronics on it here, so effectively your camera doesn't even know there's a lens there. So this is the RF mount. It's available in a wide range of mounts, but I've been trying this one on the EOS RP I use. In fact, the one that I'm shooting this video on, so hence why it's not set up here on the camera. It's the only RF mount camera I've got at the moment. So I can't use this on my 5DS. Not this version anyway. This is the RF mount. That's the 90mm. As you see, there's very little difference between 90mm, 58mm. And that leads to the first question people asked, and one that I wondered myself when Laowa said, oh, we've got this new lens coming out. Why another macro lens? Well, I'll show some examples in a bit of how the views differ. But one of the things to remember is that if I'm using this macro lens to take a photograph of something, and these are some diodes showing the perennial dust problem that you get with macro, I reckon normally I got about 20 minutes working here with a subject before I'm likely to get dust settling on it. But this, far too much to clean off. This is at 2x magnification. It's a collection of small silicon diodes. Now, why for the silicon diodes? I photograph a lot of electronic components and small components. So I do industrial macro work. So I very rarely photograph insects, flowers, any of the usual staples that you see. Now, I'm sure there'll be plenty of other reviews and examples. It's one of the reasons probably why you won't see many examples of my work in sort of stuff. Laowa did ask for some pictures, and they tend to be somewhat, apart from colourful ones like this, they tend to be a little bit dull compared to some of the insect dyes and other stuff that people seem to love for this sort of stuff. But this is a big area of macro, and as I say, I do it commercially as well, and actually do shoot here. This table is solid enough for it for most work, even at quite high magnifications. Anyway, that's the... If I go and have a look here, here's the EOS RP I was using for testing, and there's an electronic component there on it. Now this is at 2x magnification. I'm using the focus peaking on the screen. It's really useful for this because, as I said, this is fully manual lens. There are no electronics on the back of it. So from the point of view of the camera, there is no lens attached. It means that you have an aperture scale you set here from 2.8 up to 22. There is a depth of field scale, but it's like all depth of field scales. It's there for decorative purposes mainly. Goes nice, good focus swing of that for the movement there. And it's an internally focusing lens. So there's a front element here that doesn't move. You can see the inside moving in backwards, forwards as the setting. So I can set it right round to 2x magnification. Got the magnification ratios on here if you want more accuracy in it. And I can set that round to 1 magnification. It goes right round. There's 1. So there's 0.5 to 1, 0.0. I just got the ratios and the settings. Really nice smooth motion. It's a big, hefty metal lens. Now, it's a solid lens. No problems with build quality whatsoever. If you are interested in lightness and portability, never something that has attracted me in photography kit. I use big, hefty kit. If I can lift it on my own, that's a bonus. This might be, certainly 2 of these, might be a bit heavy for you if you're interested, if you're going for lightweight kit. But I'm not interested in lightweight kit, I'm interested in image quality. I basically don't carry stuff much at all if I can avoid it. As I said, why another macro? Well, we've got the 90. The difference between them at magnification like this, so we've got 2x magnification here. The images from the 90 and the 58 are identical, because they are giving an exact magnification. That's if you're just looking at a flat object. Where the difference comes in is if you've got items further back, or you're using it perhaps not at 2x, 1x magnification, or half or quarter, you're using it as a close focus lens. The relative scale of the background varies then. Now, This is no different than you get with any other lens. So when you use a zoom or you swap prime lenses, you get a different field of view, and that different field of view gives you a different apparent perspective of distant objects and close objects. You can use it the same way as you would use, say, as I say, a zoom. So if I had a 50mm or 60mm, this is closer to 90mm, I get a slightly different viewpoint. Likewise, if I want, because this one focuses at 2 times the close focus distance is only about that much. Even at 1 times it's only about that much. So your subject is quite close to the lens. That may not be what you want. If you want that, then you want a longer lens like this 90, or I reviewed a couple of years ago, I reviewed the 100mm, which is a really nice quality lens. That was an excellent lens as well. I say Laowa make quite a range of these. I've looked at them in the past. I haven't got this in videos. Some of these predate my making videos. So I've looked at the Laowa probe lens, the big long thin one, which is only a 24mm lens. And you think, well, it's a 24mm lens, but I'm focusing at this distance. The point is it lets you focus at infinity, and it gives you some interesting perspective and angles that you can get for things. That's where focal length comes in. It's no different to any other lens. Just because it says macro makes no difference. The 2x, 1x, the scale thing, now that's the same for every lens, because it's the projection scale onto the sensor. It's the actual difference of what they look like. So, as I say, it's a heavy lens. It's got a very nice 13 blade aperture, a smooth slight curve, so that it doesn't produce very pronounced sun stars. Certainly not like some of the 5 blade aperture lenses that Laowa have produced. I know I've looked at their shift lenses. The 15mm that shift lens with the 5 blade aperture gives really sharp spikes. I prefer the slightly softer. I'm not necessarily wanting sun spikes. I'm an architectural photographer as well, so spikes on lights, yeah, they can look interesting, but very quickly you can decide I don't want them. And if you've got an aperture with sharp blades on it, then you're stuck with it. So hence I quite like the 13 blade, the smooth aperture of this. It's nice, and I say it's nice. It focuses nice. There's no slap, there's no backlash, there's no nothing. It's very smooth focusing. I've used it a lot with focus peaking on this, and it does make it easier. There's no image stabilization. As I say, it's a completely manual lens. Set the aperture and you use it, and it's very easy to use. Mirrorless cameras are so much easier to use fully manual lenses. I've covered this a lot when I've looked at tilt shift lenses and aspects of their use, because they're manual as well in the settings. But let's go on an aspect. Focus breathing. This is a shot of something at f2.8. And I'm just stepping the focus through, and these are just some little plastic cars sitting on this tabletop here, and I'm just moving between them, and you can see there is a scale change. So if you're going to use focus stacking, and you use manual focus stacking, that's not as difficult as it seems. You only need perhaps to stack 2 or 3 images. This is at 2.8 to show the effect. You can see as I go back, and that's for the distance, and if I go back the other way again, you'll see the scale change. It's not that much of a problem. I've seen far worse in lenses. Some zooms are absolutely awful for it. It just varies a lot on the lens design. So it's just something to be wary of if you're doing stacking, in that if you're going to do much depth of focus stacking, you will get a change of field of view. So you won't get the full field of view when you stack things. But go through that. Now, what about the actual lens itself? Let's say f2.8. I'm not going to show pictures of walls and things like this and test charts and stuff. My own evaluation of lenses is very much of what does the detail look like. I got assorted electronic components I might use to test things on to see what they look like. I know, yeah, I might well have taken pictures of these in the past, so I can tell. I look for detail. The little cars here are, this is f2.8, and I'm now going to step through the apertures. You'll see it's very nice and soft in the out of focus areas. This, a modest amount of vignetting at 2.8. That drops off. Certainly by f8 there's very little of it. By f11 it's almost gone. There's not much in the way of vignetting on it, but the outer focus areas are nice and soft at 2.8. Go to 4, they're slightly sharper, no problems with it. I go through a bit more, and it's not until I get further up the range of there, and this is focused quite close on something here. You can see, yeah, there's perhaps a little sharpish edges on some of the specular highlights, but that's quite tidy. I've seen far worse in lenses. That's actually, you know, quite reasonable, that one. Now, let's just go a little bit more. There we go, take it up to f22. Now at f22 you're going to start getting some diffraction effects, and it's certainly going to show up somewhere. And yeah, the specular highlights here, they are a little bit more patchy. You're seeing discs with rings, not strong, but there's nothing untoward about it. There's nothing in that image which I would go, no, I don't want to use that. That's going to make a mess. That's going to look awkward in the background. Remember, I'm thinking of these primarily as macro lenses, but what you should do is think them as lenses that allow you a range of focus. Now, if you don't like manual focus lenses, and you don't like the prospect of actually having to think about your aperture, your ISO and your shutter speed, because there's no stabilization on it. If you don't like that sort of stuff, these are not lenses for you. There are far more expensive lenses available which will have all kinds of electronic features in them. But these, I think for the amount they charge, and I think this one is about $500. I haven't checked the prices. They've only been, yeah, the announcement I think is today on them, so I don't know exactly what the prices are. But Laowa lenses tend to be solid, not that expensive, and interesting. If there's one thing I would say about Laowa as a lens design company, they make interesting lenses, and I've looked at quite a lot of their lenses over the years, all kinds of stuff. They do make something a little out of the ordinary. Now, 2 manual focus macro lenses, I think there is a market for them. I'll be interested to see how well these sort of lenses do. In case you were wondering about this is the RF mount lens. Because there's no electronics or anything on this, I don't believe there are any problems with Canon and the use of the RF. You may have seen it mentioned places that Canon have got a bit uppity with some companies for producing autofocus lenses to go on RF mount cameras. I'll leave that one aside, but these are fully manual, so I don't think there's any issues there at all. But anyway, that's the view looking that way. Let's just have a quick look. This is at 2x magnification, and this is the kind of electronic components I'm far more likely to be photographing. This is a memory module. This is at 2x, and I'll just step through the apertures again, and you get a nice feel for the change of the depth of field. There we go. That's at 22. 22 is still usable. Now you will get a bit of softness, but you get extra depth of field. I get sometimes people worry so much about diffraction limiting and softening things. With any lens aperture, your perfectly sharp plane of focus is just that, it is a plane of focus. The depth of field, the acceptable softness just gets bigger. F22, I won't use it very often, but sometimes you need to use something like F22 because you want the depth of field, and that is more important than absolute razor sharp crisp detail. Depends entirely on the photo. Anyone who starts going on about, if you see people going on about diffraction limiting and things like that, yeah, that's great for forum discussions, perhaps less relevant to the real world. You know, I find an awful lot of discussions about stuff like that. I go, yeah, so what? Let me just get on with actually taking some photos, which is the key to it. But so that's at f22. Let's go back. You can see there's some, so you've got nice control over the softness. In terms of image quality, I could see virtually no chromatic aberration on that in looking at details of the lenses. Even longitudinal chromatic aberration, couldn't really see it. So where I've got here, if I look at details in the background here, some lenses you look at them and you have crisp colour at the point of focus. A bit beyond it, it'll be a bit green. A bit in front of it, it'll be a bit purple, or it may be the other way around, I can never remember. But anyway, you get a depth related chromatic out. That's not here either. So in terms of actual quality, it's there. And as I say, I'm not bothering photographing walls or things, but I see no real evidence of any significant distortion or field curvature in the lens. I had no difficulty in focusing whatsoever. Now, quite a lot of the pictures that I was doing, these ones here, are taken using this contraption. This is a flash gun, dual flash, that I actually got from Laowa quite a few years ago. And with these little soft boxes on it and these stretchable lines here and a light built in, it's really quite nifty. I've used it outside as well. I've used it for a few pictures of flowers and stuff. Karen used to use it quite a bit for jewellery photography because it's just nice and easy just to set up. Fully manual, again, you just set the strength of the flash on each one of these. The little soft boxes help. There's a light on the front of it. So that's a nice one. I've used that with this. Gives some quite nice looking shots. Now, anything else to note of it? Well, the macro focusing distance is a little bit short on this one. You're going to get a bit close compared to the 90. Let's say both come with, this is the 90 and the 58, both come with lens hoods. I've not tested this for flare. I've not seen any problems with the lighting I've got, but like anything like this, if you want to minimize flare, keep light off the front element of the lens. Now with this one, there is an element right at the front, so even if you've got sun just off shot, there's going to be enough light getting in that you might lose a bit of contrast. You might see some issues like that, but that's true for any lens. You're always wary if you've got the sun anywhere in front of the camera. Be careful what it does because it can affect your images. Varies with lenses. You know, these seem to work just well. I would say in terms of actual image quality, certainly on the RP I was testing, it's probably best around about 5.6, stop down a bit. It's pretty good at the centre and, well, not bad at the edges either, even at 2.8 if you want that thin depth of field and you want that soft focus on it of out of focus areas. You want that 2.8. You've got some nice field for it there. At the edges, I'd push it if I wanted the whole frame. I'd push it to 8, 11, but for a lot of macro stuff, I'm not so bothered about what's going on at the edges of the picture. It just depends on the subject. As I say, I'm looking at these primarily as close-up macro lenses. Don't forget they are useful as general purpose lenses as well. You could use the 90 here, 60, 58 mil, perfectly good general purpose lenses, portrait, you know, sort of shortish portrait lenses, no problem whatsoever. I'd pick them myself for closer use. Now, for actual macro use, I'd probably go for one of Laowa's more detailed, like the 2 to 5 ones, or some of the longer focus, the 100s, very nice. But if you have a use for this particular focal length, and I say they do vary, say that things do, there's a distinct difference when you're not focusing close up between the 90 and the 58. Almost as much difference as you would normally expect, as I say, between a 58 and a 90mm lens. So there you have it. Have a look. I'll be publishing some information on the Northlight Images website as well, but have a look at the Laowa details themselves. I put a link to that in the notes for the video, but all in all, very nice lens, very nice solidly built lens, and I have to say I'm still a bit of a sucker for a nice hefty, well-built lens. There you go. Hope that's been of some use. So I'll have more information on the Northlight images and some of these photos as well. I've got quite a lot more photos. I've also got some comparisons with the 90mm, but they'll be on the Northlight Images website, and I'll put a link for that in the video when that's up and published. But if you've got any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching. Oh, please do subscribe to the channel.